Thank you for joining the MAS Liberty, the inaugural interview in our new series, At Liberty. I'm George Botros, Editor-in-Chief of the Liberty, and today it's my pleasure to interview Kaden Cobbs. Kaden is a talented writer and a good friend of mine, and he's just published a thoughtful and timely appeal for court packing. Thanks for coming on, Kaden.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we will not exhaust all the arguments in your piece, so I encourage our viewers to read it. But could you very briefly summarize them?
So basically, in the piece, I talk about how court packing is revenge for what I perceive to be Republican injustices and breaking precedents and breaking their own rules that they set last time during Merrick Garland's nomination. They didn't even allow him to have a hearing, and yet they're just, speeding through Amy Coney Barrett. So that's basically what the entire piece is about. It's a revenge piece, essentially.
So, Kaden, some worry your prescription of more gamesmanship could lead to a race to the bottom. Do you believe we've already reached this nadir, or are you confident that a bipartisan commitment to institutional norms could be born out of this fight?
I think that we've actually already reached the bottom, and I think that that was on full display at the first presidential debate because of how tenuous and just like it resembled a schoolyard fight, and we all saw it on national television. I think that's the lowest. I think that we could go lower, but I think that that's definitely like probably the lowest moment in modern U.S. politics. I think that we're already at the bottom. And I think that it's time for Democrats to start making power grabs, to start playing the same type of game that the other side is playing.
So on that note of partisanship that you say we saw at the debate, in your article, you cite an increasingly partisan bench as one reason court packing is appropriate today, even if it were not in 1937. However, in many ways, the court is less partisan than it was in 1937. I'll cite the examples of Chief Justice Charles Evans Hughes and Justice William Douglas, who both used their position to pursue political office. Do these facts contradict your argument, or would they just speak to a degree of corruption?
I think that, yes, the court was definitely used as a political stepping stone in the past. People would be appointed to the court seeking positions in cabinets, seeking more political positions in the future. That definitely happened. But I think that right now, the decisions that the court and the cases that the court is facing are definitely more partisan. They're more along party lines. People tend to get more offended or tend to support what the court is saying or not saying at this time, depending on what side that you're on. And they're dealing with issues like gay civil rights, trans civil rights. They're dealing with issues like voting rights. They're dealing with the Second Amendment cases. They're dealing with abortion, which is one of the most controversial topics it's probably the most controversial political area in modern politics, abortion. So I think that definitely the cases that the court is dealing with right now are more political compared to the 1930s and 1940s. I think that people definitely have a more tenuous relationship with the court, especially after a string of controversial decisions like the decision in 2005 that was really bad for people's property rights, that really gave the government a lot of power with eminent domain. We had the decision in 2000 in which the court decided a presidential election completely along party lines. All the conservative justices basically voted for Bush, and all of the liberal justices voted for Gore. So I think that right now we're definitely dealing with a far more political court that's more political in nature. The court is perceived to be more political by the media. The court is being fought over more in Congress and by Democrats and Republicans. I brought this up in my article. The vote with Kavanaugh was the closest confirmation vote in the history of the Supreme Court. It was 50-48. Meanwhile, many of the other justices on the court were appointed by almost 100% of the Senate. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed by 97% of the Senate. Scalia was appointed by 100% of the Senate. Anthony Kennedy, before it, a lot of the recent justices were appointed by huge margins of the Senate. And then now, in modern times, we're seeing Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and probably Barrett. They're probably going to be appointed by really slim margins. So even when it comes to like the nomination process, we're seeing it get far more feisty than it has been in modern times. It's almost harking back to like the 1830s when the court was especially going through the same type of crises right now. And the seats, the number of seats on the bench was also changed multiple times in that era because of how political the court was. We had a lot of close confirmation votes back then too. So
on the topic of Senate votes, in 1937, the Democrats held around 76 seats in the Senate. Do you think this plan is plausible, considering that the current projection has Democrats around 54 seats in the Senate?
Well, I think that it definitely is plausible. Like, Chuck Schumer is going to have to whip a lot of the moderate Democrats if he wants to pursue this, to basically follow the pack and to vote for court packing. It's going to be hard to even convince a lot of people on our own side to do this, but I think that it definitely is attainable. In order to do this, we're going to have to get rid of the filibuster, because in order to change the number of seats on the bench, it requires an actual formal act that has to be passed through both houses. The filibuster will have to go, and there's no bringing it back. And that could also, there might be political blowback in the future because of that. But I think that it's definitely risky, but I think that it's also necessary because people's rights are on the line. So we saw, earlier this week, Clarence and Alito launched another attack on the gay marriage decision. So I think that it's super relevant right now to consider packing the court, because the Democrats made a lot of promises to a lot of groups. And if they don't keep them, they can lose the black vote. They can lose the gay vote. They can lose a lot of the minority votes that they rely on if they don't protect our rights. And part of that just includes, packing the court so they can do that.
Well, this has been a very fun and hopefully edifying conversation. Thank you for sharing your voice with the Liberty, Kaden.
Thank you.